Hello and welcome to another episode of Metal Effort. My name's Nehemiah, and today we're going to look at this piece of metal, the Massdrop Dogtooth, in collaboration with Brad Zinker. This is a knife that I got on loan from Nick Shabazz. It's not something I would normally have picked up on my own, but I'm glad that I got to take a look at it and get my opinions formed. So first thing we want to do is our size comparison. We've got our pair of 3 and our Spyderco PM2. This is a 3.3 inch blade on the Dogtooth, so right in between the two Spydercos. And as you can see, it's a pretty aggressive Wharncliffe blade, which is interesting. And then we're going to do our weigh-in real quick. I think this is of particular note. Boop. 2.25 ounces. This is a very lightweight, obviously way less than an ounce an inch, and I think it's something pretty compelling in the pocket. So let's get into our dent, the decent, the excellent, the nitpicks, and the terrible of this piece of metal. In the decent, the first thing we want to talk about is that weight. Now obviously we're kind of pulling this off with a lot of speed holes for days. So the design here isn't really sacrificing too much in the knife's structural integrity, but it definitely is going to make this a lot lighter because we've got, what was it, like 33 something holes, something like that. It's a lot of holes. If speed holes actually make the knife faster, this knife is the equivalent of the Flash coming back from the future telling us to put more holes in more knives. So A+ for holes, I guess. Next is this crazy Wharncliffe blade. This is almost straight. It's got a very, very subtle curve to it. And you'll see the blade here, like where it comes to the actual, point. It's a little bit thicker on the grind because we have this compound grind going on. And this is starting from a thicker place right here than it is here. So you can kind of see that transition right there on both sides. At first it looks like a sloppy sharpening job, but it's just by nature of this compound grind. It's subtle, but it's there. In terms of the actual effectiveness of this blade, I think it's surprisingly useful. It's super duper aggressive here on the just length of it and how thin it is. This is a very serious stabber. I don't know. It's not like hard use stabbing, but I found this knife to be actually kind of practical and handy to have around the house. If there's something that's kind of like far away or in an awkward spot and I can't really reach it and I just need to, just nip the tip of something, I found myself looking for this knife. It does fit a very specific, blade shape kind of job that you might need doing. As far as, the normal stuff, food prep, cutting up open boxes and things like that, it does the job just fine. If I'm doing food prep specifically, I'd probably prefer my Spidey Chef, but this can get the job done, and it's just so long for such a small knife that you can usually get through material pretty easily. So that's good. And the steel being used here, as you can see on the blade here, this is S35, which is an excellent super steel, especially for the price, but we'll get to that in a bit. And then we've got our customary Massdrop on the back. We got the BZ for the Brad Zinker. Pretty classy, I guess. I mean, I definitely, I'm a fan of clean blades. And this could be worse. The word Massdrop could be even larger. I wouldn't mind it if it was small and kind of up in the corner or something like that. But it's fine. You kind of know what you're getting into when you're getting a Massdrop knife in terms of the billboarding. So it's fine. Next thing I want to talk about is this clip. This is a very deep carry clip, and it's positioned very high on the knife. So this completely disappears in your pocket. It is very, very nice in that regard. Factoring that in with just how straight it is in your pocket and how light it is, this is really, really compelling just as an EDC knife to just always have with you, and it's not really that much of a cost. As far as the pocket becking goes, the jimping is kind of sharp, but it's not too protruding. I didn't find it to be too much of a problem personally. It's not going to be as good as a front flipper or anything like that, or a spidey hole type of a blade, but it's fine. It's okay. The clip, I mean, very little to complain about. It's not hot spotty. You can get into your pants pretty easy. It's a little bit short, but because the knife is so lightweight, I don't really want to knock it for that at all. I think it's exactly what it needs to be. So that's good. The other nice little touch here is you've got, it blends in so well on this like kind of stonewash finish. There's different options. There's a DLC one, then there's a dark blue anodized with just a satin blade. But on this one in particular, that steel insert pretty much disappears. Like the seam is very fine. You can maybe bring it in focus there. It's got an over travel stop hidden in there. So all the like, niceties of a modern titanium frame lock folder are there, which is kind of nice to see. And as far as like getting to the lock bar, I actually like this knife quite a lot in that regard. Lots of jimping here, which is good. And then it's wide enough to where I can get my whole thumb in without having to feel like I have to like get just the tip of my thumb in. Like if there's a shorter hole, then it's like, it's all the pressure is going into like the tip of the finger instead of spreading it evenly across the whole thumb. So to get the D10 ball onto the tang of the blade and push that lock bar over, it's actually a really comfortable, easy thing to do. And I very much appreciate that for somebody that fidgets with their knives a lot. I'm looking for the ease of, disengaging that lock without, rubbing my fingers raw. So good job on that. In terms of the ergonomics in the hand, it's nothing to write home about. It's not specifically bad. There's no major hotspot or awkward finger gymnastics to have a place for your hand to go. I have a medium-sized hand, and, I got room to grow, so even if you have a big hand, I think you definitely could make this work. And while this has a sharpening choil, a very generous sharpening choil, unless you have baby fingers, you're not going to be able to use that as a finger choil. So pretty much everything has to fit right here. And it does, for the most part. It's fine. It's good. It's not so comfortable that it's like, oh yes, this belongs in my hand. It's very carefully crafted to be the shape of a human hand in the palm. It's fine. It's good. It's not bad. It's not great. Kind of boring. It's good that it's not in my nitpicks or in my terrible, but not in the excellent, let's say. The jimping on the top of the blade is pretty aggressive. The only thing I would wish, because it is good jimping, is that it went up the blade a little bit further. The way that you kind of want to bear down, just naturally holding the knife, I think your thumb wants to sit about here. And so it's only getting about, half, the back half of jimping on your thumb. Kind of feels weird to put it here because that pressure that's going down isn't even going down on the part of the blade, directly down. So normally, you want your pressure to go right at the heel of the knife. So if you're doing, cuts, or push cuts type of thing, you can get it going and then run it through. So not a big deal. I'm glad that the jimping is real jimping. Just wanted more of it, but still good. Now we're going to move on into the excellent. And I've got two things in the excellent. First off is just the action on this. This knife is actually produced by We Knives, and we all know how good We is on their actions. This is no exception. So detent on this is like perfectly medium. Doesn't need to be any harder or softer. It's right where it needs to be. It's a flick out with authority. Feels good. It's not difficult to get the blade coming out. And as far as the fall shut goes, once you get the detent ball onto the tang of the blade, it's like one little jostle, boom, shut. Like you don't really have to coax the blade shut. It's pretty much not fall shut, but about as close to it just closing on its own power as you can without it actually doing so. So the fidget factor on this knife is really, really, really good. It's quick, easy, and like I said, it's easy to disengage the lock. And so it's very kind of cathartic to just flip this knife. The opening, the closing, the disengaging the lock are all on par and equal with each other in how fun and easy it is to handle the knife's action. Next thing is just the extreme price and value that you're getting out of this knife. This is coming in at about $120 on Massdrop. They have drops pretty regularly. I don't think it's going to be particularly difficult to get this knife, at least not these days. $120 for a titanium frame lock flipper with S35EN steel and awesome action without any like glaring, weaknesses in those areas. This is just a very excellent value. Because of just the stats on the paper and how good it is in the hand and in reality, I can't really argue with just being able to recommend it just on value alone. If this was $180 or something like that, then it's like, whoa, I don't know about that. Just because it is kind of a weird design, it might not be for everybody. But on the whole, the value on this, $120, that's not that much. You can easily, set that money aside, even if you're on a tight budget. Get yourself a knife that will last a long time. So, next, we're going to move on to our nitpicks. I have a few nitpicks, nothing too crazy, but stuff definitely to mention. I don't like the compound grind. Now, this is totally opinion. The only thing in the practical sense is just the sharpening. I think I'm going to freak myself out if I had to sharpen this knife and be like, am I doing it wrong? Or is it just that grind that's looking crazy? That being said, this is such a flat, straight blade. I can't imagine it'd be too difficult to botch up a sharpening job. But I just wish that this grind line right here just kind of arched over and it was one, grind instead of these two. I don't think this was necessary. As far as the billboarding, you could have just moved the billboarding back and up a little bit to make room for that arch. And I think it would have been aesthetically a lot more pleasing. And then just from a practical standpoint of just one nice, even blade, that would have been, both useful and aesthetically pleasing. This is totally subjective. This is not in a terrible. I think from a personal standpoint, it rubs me the wrong way for some reason. It's totally personal preference. Next is if you put too much pressure on the lock bar when you're firing it out, it is a Chinese finger trap. You can't get it to come out. So there was one time where I kind of accidentally had my finger a little too high on the lock bar, and then my finger slipped off, and I gouged my fingernail. It's kind of misshapen because of that. I basically just had a hangnail, so I cut it down. It's fine. But normally, I'm so kind of trained to not put a ton of pressure on the lock bar for most titanium frame locks that it's not something I think most of us would run into. If this is your first titanium frame lock, you just hand this to a non-knife person, they might trick themselves and it's like childproof lock to they can't do it. But there's enough space over here that you can just kind of park your finger in the cutout / clip area, and then that there's basically no pressure on that lock bar and it's not going to be an issue. This isn't super unnatural to have your hand kind of like that. And it's not as bad as the Matanzas that I reviewed, where it's if you're looking at the lock bar too hard, it won't open. I could still have a finger there and it fires out fine. But if I'm too high on it, things change. So it's just that leverage that you have to be kind of mindful of. Not a big deal, worth mentioning. Next thing is just the aesthetics of the knife. And not so much does this look cool to you? But there are going to be people in your life that you might consider a little bit timid, that if you whip this knife out, especially with this awesome action, and you're like, oh, I got it, waka! This looks like you're about to attack them. It's such an aggressive point that this might not be a good knife for the lunchroom, if you know what I mean. The speed holes kind of give it the tactical look. Maybe if you got the blue with the satin blade, it would look a little less threatening, but the black one or the stone washed one, I just get the vibe of this is a little aggressive, and some people that don't know better might get a little scared from it. So that's something to consider depending on your life and who you hang around with. Lastly, this knife is not necessarily meant to be a hard use knife. And to that point, this tip is pretty fine at the end. I mean, we're talking it's not very tall and it's not very thick. You do not want to be prying or doing anything dumb with the tip of this blade. It's incredibly useful for the delicate things that are hard to reach or getting the clamshell, but you just want to be careful. This isn't meant to be, a Strider or something dumb where it's a sharpened crowbar. It's good, for what it does. You just need to have the right expectations for the kind of knife this is. For the terrible section, I don't think there's anything specifically terrible. I just think, given the subjective kind of design choices that were chosen for this knife, something I think is bound to turn somebody off. Whether it's the Wharncliffe blade itself and just how aggressive it is, or the compound grind, or the excessive speed holes. There just might be something that kind of throws you off. And so the terrible is just all the subjective things that kind of have to line up. Your stars have to line up in order for you to like this knife. You have to like or not care about the speed holes, like or not care about the compound grind or the Wharncliffe. If you can get past those things, or if you just naturally like those things, I think what you have left over is a really good knife. As we move into the conclusion, I think the value proposition of this knife is just really easy for me to recommend to somebody. Simply show them a picture of the knife. Does this look cool to you? Yes, then I can recommend it. It's not a blind recommendation like the Keen would be, where it's not really offensive. Maybe it's not your favorite looking knife, or you might think it's a little bit boring, but there's no way that you're going to hate the look of the Keen, where this might rub some people the wrong way. And so while it's a recommendation, it does have a asterisk of, do you want something this aesthetically kind of crazy and aggressive? If you do, then I think you found yourself a great knife, and I can recommend it.